Yeah, a couple of days ago in a previous video, I already showed you this book here. It's the book Critique of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant, a very well-known, very important philosopher, 1700s of the Age of Enlightenment, thick book, as you can see, and extremely difficult to read, and some people say impossible to translate. Because not only because the language is so difficult to understand, but also because the contents are very high, a higher level. And apparently, when he published the first edition of this book, he had real problems selling it because almost nobody could understand it. But what I would like to do today is I would like to give you a little taste of this by reading out the first sentence of the preface of this book. And I think it's a pity because it's such an interesting, I think maybe also an important concept, but it's so difficult to understand that maybe the true meaning remains hidden to most readers. But you're lucky, I will explain it to you. But I want to read it out first, and then you'll basically get a little taste of why this book is so difficult to understand. So here's the English translation. Okay, here we go. Human reason has this peculiar fate, that in one species of its cognition it is burdened by questions which it cannot decline, for they are imposed on it by the nature of reason itself. Yet it cannot answer them, for they transcend all the powers of human reason. It's an interesting one, right? I think I need to clarify this here a little bit and explain it to you. Immanuel Kant, he's frustrated, and he said it's the fate of humankind that we, with our reason, with our brain, we're able to ask questions. And at the same time, we also know that we will not be able to have an answer for these questions. Questions about human nature, maybe, and so on. There are questions out there that we know we want to ask. We can ask them, but at the same time, we already know that we will not be able to find an answer. And he said that's frustrating in the sense because that's our peculiar fate that we have as humans. Maybe this describes human nature, that we are able to ask questions where we already know that there will not be an answer. I think, this is quite interesting. I mean, other people have addressed similar issues, the three questions of humanity: where do I come from, where do I go to, and who am I? Yeah, interesting questions, right? But will we ever know the answer? Well, we can try to find answers, of course. Different disciplines try to have their own approach to answer these questions. Religion has its own approach. Science has its own approach. Who am I, for example, in the sciences, that basically tries to address the physical, material nature of who I am. Yeah, art tries to explain who I am from a form of artistic self-expression. So different disciplines and areas have the different approach to that, and to answer these questions. But Kant says, well, there are kind of questions out there which probably we will never have an answer to, and we are aware of that. I think it's a very powerful and a very interesting quote here. I'm just going to leave it at that, because I think sometimes you just can leave the quotes standing as they are without necessarily dissecting them, and I think he describes quite well what basically characterizes us human beings. I wish you all the best. Bye-bye.